Hello, everybody, and welcome to Harry and Jen Do Horror with Friends. This week, we're analyzing and critiquing Huesera, the Bone Woman from 2022. It's a Mexican-Peruvian film directed by Michelle Garza-Cervera and starring Natalia Solian. Jen and I had a blast talking about this movie with our friend Caroline Levine, who professes the English literatures at Cornell University. I want to say that we are a full spoilers podcast, so if you have not seen Huesera, go see it and come back to us. Some potential content warnings: this episode deals with pregnancy, motherhood, postpartum depression, and flirts with infanticide. If those things are hard to hear about, obviously, please take care of yourself. Go ahead and skip this one. As always, if you have a minute, we welcome ratings and reviews on your podcast streaming services. However, the best is when people actually share these episodes with their horror enthusiast friends. So if that's you, if you have buds who like scary movies, why not send them a little link to the show? We greatly appreciate it. Next month, we will discuss the horror film with the best marketing of 2024, Long Legs, starring Nicolas Cage. So if you saw that baddie, you might want to keep an eye out for that one, dropping on October 8th. For now, let's talk to Caroline about Huesera, the Bone Woman.
When you're pregnant, you are possessed. you have something else inside you, and you don't know what it is or how it's working.
I'm Harry Nichols. I'm a singer-songwriter. I am an English teacher at the high school level. And we always add also just like a thing that we're thinking about at the moment. So I think what I want to comment on is, at the time of recording, it's like mid-August, and we've had this weird streak of like really very autumnal weather. And I both love it and I hate it because it is reminding me that the summer is coming to an end, and I'm not ready for that. I traveled a lot this summer, which has been great, but it also has made it just absolutely careen by, and I'm not ready to get back in the swing of it, to be perfectly honest.
I'm Jen Lightfoot. I'm an artist and tattoo artist, and I have to disagree with Harry. I'm so excited for fall. I just went to Spirit Halloween the other day.
Is it open already?
Yeah, I blew too much money on things I don't need but also need.
What did you get?
I got this weird little gothic hand bracelet finger thing.
Okay.
Got a Terrifier Art the Clown doormat. A weird skull with moths on it. And a Halloween costume that my partner got, but I won't say what it is because we always have our costumes be a secret. But yes, I'm very excited for all things fall.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting. All right, I'm gonna start predicting what your costume is gonna be. Not right now. I'm letting it percolate.
Okay.
You know?
I'm Caroline Levine. I'm a professor in the English department, the Department of Literatures in English at Cornell. And I don't know a lot about horror, but I spend a lot of time interpreting books and movies, so I'm hoping we'll have an exciting conversation. I'm thinking about fall too, and I'm somewhere between the two of you. I think I'm liking the cool weather, scared to death of the semester.
Yeah, definitely. And so tell me how you got, so Jen, this is Jen's friend, dear listener. How do you all know each other?
So I met Caroline through my partner Tegan. So I can't remember how Tegan and you met, actually.
Tegan invited me to her university where she teaches to talk about my work. And we had never met before, but then we immediately became good friends. It was magic.
Wow. I'm picturing like Was there like a moment where you like saw each other and there's just like the music, the dramatic
The
music rises?
yeah, we needed a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Somebody has to write our soundtrack.
Yes. Yep. I'm picturing it on campus, outside. Everyone disappears around you.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's like a
Just the
field,
two
there's
of
a
us.
meadow,
Yeah.
and running open-armed to each other.
Well, and Tegan was the one who pointed out. I said to her at one point, I don't really know anything about horror, but it came up in conversation that two of my favorite movies are Rosemary's Baby and Get Out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so then it became clear that I could no longer say that about myself.
And when I
Sure.
heard that, I was like, well, you need to be on our podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, I feel like it's thanks to Get Out that we now have like a lot of these conversations about horror movies too. Like Rosemary's Baby, like people were making movies like that, of course. Like Rosemary's Baby, really excellent movie to analyze and to have conversations around. But I feel like for some reason for a while back there, it was like, I don't know, there was this understanding that horror was just kind of like, sensationalist and
Yes.
just kind
Yeah.
of bloody
Yes.
and you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
Yes.
there for-
Like
Yeah.
the shock or like Texas Chainsaw,
Exactly,
like the gory
exactly.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, so we're here to talk about Huesera, the Bone Woman. Caroline, can you summarize Huesera, the Bone Woman for us?
I can try. So it starts with a woman, Valeria, in Mexico, who seems like just a happily married woman in a domestic kind of upscale life. And she wants to get pregnant, and she's trying with her husband, Raul. And it just seems very kind of ordinary.
Yeah.
But gradually, we come to realize she's not super ordinary because she has a workshop and a lot of power tools. And that's
Right.
what she seems to do all day. So that's a little bit of a sign that maybe she's not just a pretty wife, happy at home. And when she gets pregnant, a lot of very creepy things start happening. But also we start to discover that she was a punk when she was younger, and that she had a lesbian lover, and she was going to run off with her. And so we get a totally different backstory, and that she's kind of upwardly mobile in class term. Like,
Yes,
this guy
yeah.
is well off, and she's actually maybe a little trapped in this marriage. But we get a lot of... creepy stuff. And I'm not going to describe that right now because I feel like it would take too long and take away from the summary. But at the end, there's a kind of ritual. She goes through a real ritual experience of kind of purging the spider people that are
like whatever is.
possessing
Yes,
her.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And then when we see her in the last scene, she's leaving her husband and baby with her toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's such an interesting movie. It really began. There is a real turn in its tone, and I actually really had I watched this movie twice. I had a hard time trying to pinpoint exactly where we start getting the sense that she's not happy in this relationship. I wonder if anyone had opinions on that.
Yeah.
I think it's scene one.
Tell me.
Really?
Go ahead.
Where I've seen this movie 3 times. I literally just watched it right before we did this because I was like, oh fuck, I need to refresh on this.
Whoops.
But she's fucking her husband, and it's kind of one of those scenes where she's like, I think she says, "What are you doing?" Or
like, "Hurry up, let's go."
hurry
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
But it's like
yeah.
joking, like it's like a sweet moment, like
Right.
they're like laughing about it, so you don't notice it right away. But it's like she's just kind of like, okay, let's get this over with.
Right.
So I think from very early on, you can kind of see her. It's like conforming to what you think society wants you to do. Like, have a husband, have
Right.
a house, have a baby. But it's like, I don't know if she, like, I think the movie kind of like takes us through a journey of her realizing like that's not what she wants. Yeah.
I have a kind of a question about one of the scenes, because I also thought that their laughing together was so sweet, right? So that's what distracts you from what's going on, which is she's saying to him, hurry up and get this over with, which is not great intimacy. But they're playful. And then there's a scene, not too long into the movie where they're kind of being playful on the floor together, but then she kind of... She looks like a wrestler or something.
Right.
She kind of pins him down. She suddenly looks like the much stronger and more dominant figure. And I wondered if that was my first clue. Like, that just looked, looked out of place for me.
They do shoot her like muscular.
Her musculature,
yeah.
skeletal muscular
Yeah,
stuff.
which I remember the trailer for it almost made it look like she would be more of the body horror. But it does. It's like
I think she is. But,
she is, but it's not extreme.
So, are you getting at the idea, Caroline, that you feel like she is portrayed sort of like contrary to like gender norms, expectations?
Yeah, it kind of seeps in because she's very conventionally beautiful in some ways. She has this beautiful big eyes, right? And she looks quite demure. She has long hair, and we learn, I don't know how long into the movie, that she used to have a shaved head, right? That's one of those moments where you're like, what? So she just looks the part, right? And then, but you get all these kind of little signs that she doesn't actually fit it, and it's not until the revelation that she was punk, I think, that you get a sense. Oh, she pulls out. She's got a box of memories, and what does she pull out from there? It's like a.
I think there's records.
The Cure. She's wearing a Cure t-shirt,
and the song playing is a band that. I meant to look up. I Shazammed it. That's not helpful. But like almost like I don't know where they are from. So I'll just say Spanish singing band that sounds like The Cure too. But I feel like it's almost like, is it vinyls or like
something like that. Yeah,
45s. I'm not sure, but she's going through something like that. But that scene stuck out to me too. Yeah.
Well, and there's also the fact that she does like a lot of woodworking, right? That's like kind of traditionally like man's work, right? So that's really interesting. So there's this idea that like maybe part of what is making her feel trapped is gender norms and expectations. Like reproduction is, I think, in this case, like a part of it. Right?
Definitely, right. And you don't know for a long time what her feelings are about being pregnant, right? The whole first scene where she's doing this kind of pilgrimage to a statue where she can pray to have a baby. She has no expression on her face at all.
That's
so
true.
you don't get the sense of like, oh, here's a woman who's desperate to have a baby, exactly, even though that's what the event would seem to suggest. So,
well, and I think actually we're maybe even given some evidence to. I mean, I think if you look closely, maybe you can see the sort of subtle discontentment there. But like when she finds out that they're actually pregnant, she seems genuinely very happy.
Yeah, because she jumps into his arms, right?
Yes, right.
But when she goes to the ultrasound, she's the only one in the room that can't tell what is the baby.
Right.
So I feel like that's an instance where I don't know. It's not that. Just because you don't see the baby in the ultrasound doesn't mean you don't want it, but you get the, implied that she doesn't have a connection with it necessarily.
She's kind of alienated from it, whereas her husband is so
excited and so just
you can see the hand and the meat, whatever.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Something that I was thinking about was so I feel like this movie falls into like kind of a very common horror trope, which is the the dismissive husband of the, it's
like you're making it all up.
Or you're losing your mind or there's something wrong with you. And it's I feel like it's a really common haunted house thing, actually.
Yeah.
Where the woman is, more perceptive to spirits or supernatural stuff or whatever it is. And it's always the role of the husband, I feel like, in these movies to be you're losing your mind. You're making it up, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like there's just a real disconnect that they sort of sow from the very beginning. including the scene where they're shopping for cradles.
Mm-hmm.
And like his mom really wants to buy them a cradle. She really wants to make them a cradle.
Yes.
And like he's just like, no, just let her buy it. We don't have to use it. But there's still like he doesn't really let her have her way there. You know what I mean? Like
Right. No, it's
like, what are y'all's vibes on Raul? Like, what do we think about this guy? Like,
I feel like he seems like a nice guy, like, you know, on the surface, but yeah, he doesn't listen to her. I think he wants the, like, you know, white picket fence, like family type thing. And like, I feel like as the movie progresses, you can see him getting less and less patient with her.
Totally.
And
Absolutely.
like more frustrated by her. And like,
and more accusatory towards her
yeah.
about the things that are happening. Right.
Yeah. So
But
I'm
guys,
not sure how good he is.
wouldn't you do that too? I mean, if your partner was, if you saw no evidence and your partner was, because we don't think that he sees anything, right? And and she's fine. You know, she says my foot was just broken, right? And then he's like, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
You know, I did not feel unsympathetic to Raul.
I would have, I feel like if I was Raul, I would be like worried that there was something like maybe mentally wrong. Like maybe like anxiety is so high, like maybe you should go to a therapist. Like I'd be like, it's not, maybe like, I wouldn't say like it's in their head because clearly something's happening to them that like feels real to them.
Yep.
So like maybe it's not physical, but like
Right.
emotional or mental. I don't know. I would be concerned for them still, and I don't know though if I would. I think I would believe somebody was in the house. I was like, with that scene, I was like, put on some lights.
Yes, right.
Look around.
He didn't make an actual check.
I don't know. I guess my approach would be different. Not that I wouldn't necessarily believe the full story that she's espousing with this, but that I don't know. He just seems so unreceptive.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like dismissive. He's just like.
And for me, what kind of sealed my opinion of him was that there's like a scene where they have like friends over for dinner.
Oh,
and
yes.
He's just like his mood, his little like vibe is very like dark energy, like pretty bad. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Although he's just heard from her mom, right, that she was babysitting the night before and actually harmed the children.
Yeah, and all that. Yeah,
and hadn't told him that.
Right.
I guess the most terrifying moment for me in the whole movie is, there were some spider people creep out moments, but the moment when she disappears, the baby is crying. Oh. She disappears from our view.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
And she picks up the baby, and then she comes back to bed and there's no baby. And I felt for him in that moment. Like, you know, something is wrong with her. You know, whatever is going on with her, she's unable to care for this child. And he's left her saying, I should have somebody stay with you, you know, all those kinds of things. So anyway, we know it's not her fault, but it's
she's
terrifying
upset by it.
She's upset by herself not taking care of the baby.
It feels like a postpartum type thing.
Yes.
In that moment, it does. Because there are instances where people do kill or injure their babies.
Yep.
Yes.
So that instance reminded me of it. Not maybe some of the other moments.
And one of the big, one of the symptoms that I often associate that I know about with postpartum is like a lack of feeling connected to the child, right? And like I think that like a lot of this movie is about her attitude toward the idea of having a baby and then ultimately the baby in the end.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, because we don't even. I think this is right, that the camera doesn't even let us really see the baby's face until she sees the baby's face, right?
Yeah.
Like she's actually turning away from the baby. We are too, right? We're having that relationship of disconnection. We can't get close.
That's interesting. Almost like trying to put us in her shoes. I do think, okay, so kind of going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, but also connected with this, just to talk about themes for a minute. One of the themes, and it's, I don't know if I could call it a theme, but like loss of identity. So I kind of feel like I feel bad for her because I feel bad for her, but I mean, the one problem is she hasn't been honest with herself through her life. And so she did marry Raul and like made these choices. And after a lot of things happened, realized this wasn't for her. But, you know, the moment where she's like painting her carpentry studio is a moment of like covering her identity. It's like getting rid of it. Like the doctor even says no more carpentry. But the one thing I thought was interesting, the whole hetero relationship, family, everyone, they're like, you can't do what you were doing. Like, you know, you have to dress normal, can't be a punk, can't do carpentry. But then she goes and stays over with Octavia. And Octavia says
multiple times, I believe. Does she go to Octavia multiple times, or is it just the
twice,
one time?
maybe once?
Yeah.
Definitely once, maybe twice. But Octavia says something different. She asks if she's still making furniture. And Valeria says that no, and then just kind of the words baby and power tools. And then Octavia says, you'll find a way. So compared to the heteronormative relationship, the queer relationship almost allows for one to keep their identity.
And still... still have children. And
right. Like she wasn't saying like, oh, you need to divorce Raul and get rid of the baby. She was like, you'll find a way in your life. Yeah. And I was like, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so something I observed in this movie that I think is in keeping with that. So there's this concept, I think, in this movie of like fracturing. We see a lot of things fracture in this movie, and we observe her like in sort of like a cinematography way, like in fractures, in pieces. There's a part where she drops a mirror. There's a part where we view her through the bars of the cradle that she's building. There's a part where she sort of steps outside and we see her, but in the foreground is like a spider's web, creating sort of like a fractured, like mirror smash image. And I kind of want to put some of these like on the Instagram as we go.
Yes.
But what you're talking about, you know, like the fracturing of identity, I think is like a really, I think that really helps to support that reading in a way. Which I think is really cool.
It's also like, what's the relationship between a spider's web and a cracked mirror? They sort of have the same look to them, but one pulls things together and the other smashes them apart. And so it's like, which one is it? Is she coming together or is she being cracked apart?
That's interesting.
Right. Well, and so so there's a very interesting kind of, is it ironic to assume that for the whole movie that she's kind of falling apart and losing her mind, but in the end, I mean, she comes to a conclusion. Yeah, right?
She does.
She learns something. She heals.
Nobody's really hurt. The baby's fine.
Right. Yeah,
she leaves. You know.
Right.
Everyone will probably be happier in a few months.
Yeah.
It's a happy ending.
I actually think so.
I do too.
I actually do think it's a happy ending.
Yeah, I was surprised by the ending. I was like, okay, I love this. This feels like a very feminist ending.
Yes.
And she didn't kill the baby, because so many of these movies,
which we all kind of assumed that she did when you saw that.
I know. When she walks up to the window, I was just like, oh no. Which I'm happy that was not the case. Like,
Well, and I have to say, I was feeling like a bad feminist a few minutes ago when you guys were like, oh, but Raul's not a good husband. But now I feel like we're on the same page, because I also like the ending. Because it seems like he loves taking care of the baby.
was,
He
yeah.
should do that. And she wants to go with her power tools. Awesome.
She should do that. Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like the backpack was her set, like a way for us to know that she was going hiking with Octavia.
Yeah.
It's like going
Oh,
with
yeah.
her.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh yeah, he'll find somebody who wants to be with him and wants to, likes babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a tragedy for anyone because,
No.
as you say, the baby survives. But you would have expected, as horror fans, you would have expected a very high likelihood that the baby would die.
Yeah, or
That
some
was-
kind
yeah.
of dark ending. Like
Yeah.
the baby dying. It seems
High likelihood.
Yeah.
High likelihood. Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't know that when I was watching because
I thought so. I thought there was a strong likelihood that this baby wouldn't make it.
Yeah, I mean that's like a few horror movies we've seen recently with babies that are killed. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, Immaculate. You're
Immaculate.
talking
Yeah,
about
where
that.
she smashes the baby with a
Oh
rock.
my gosh, that movie. Anyway,
I think I won't be watching that.
no, I
it's not
wouldn't.
worth it.
It's not worth.
Okay, all right, good.
The overall story is not worth the
No.
last moment of sheer agony. Anyway, something I wanted to ask about, if I can just.
Oh,
is
yeah,
it cool
go for
if
it,
I
go for
switch
it.
gears here? So the number one category that I've seen when I've researched this movie online, that people want to call it a body horror film.
Oh, right.
And I wonder what y'all think of the body horror stuff in this movie.
I had to look it up. I had to look up the term body
Like, what
horror
body
because I
horror
didn't
is.
even know what it was.
And I actually
so-
haven't looked at a good definition in a minute. What did you find?
Well, it's I should have written it down, but I got the impression that it was when the horror is in your body.
Yeah.
So like any kind of possession that it's often associated with.
Yes, yes.
Possession.
I think my understanding of it, which is just based on my own experience with it, is it's like kind of about. It's horror that forces you to realize that you're kind of just a sack of meat walking around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
yeah,
like possession, but it would have to be like something physically transforming with the body. Like the body
Yes.
becomes the horror.
Yes.
Yes,
So-
right.
So in this movie, I'm thinking about just all of the bone cracking noises.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this, all of the, just that kind
The
of
little
body horror.
spider puzzle
The
people.
spider people who and her like cracking her fingers
Yep.
and like it's having it snap on her in her mind or whatever, right? I mean, I wonder, did y'all have any kind of thematic takes on that? Is there any way to pull those things together?
I was definitely thinking about pregnancy in
Yeah.
relation to that because that's one of the reasons I like Rosemary's Baby. The idea that when you're pregnant, you are possessed. you have something else inside you, and you don't know what it is or how it's working. And I actually thought one of the things that was so interesting about the movie was so much focus on bones, because I don't feel like that's my primary association with pregnancy, right? So like the one thing that is it the aunt who says when you give birth it'll feel like, oh no, it was the mother or the sister, when you give birth it'll feel like your bones are cracking.
Yeah.
But mostly pregnancy isn't about bones. Mostly it's about this huge belly that grows on you, right? Like this other kind of possession. And so I was trying to think about that, and we get so many views of her back, right? But with pregnancy it's all about the front, right?
No, that's very true.
So-
and the only scene we really get with the front is when she's like lying in the bathtub.
Yeah, right. That's the only time we see the pregnant belly, right?
And still the horrifying thing is when she like curls over
Curls
and we see the
over
back.
it, yeah.
And it's like the muscles moving. The other
Yes.
thing the mother-in-law says is like when you give birth, you're, oh God, I'm going to get it wrong, but something like it feels like you're splitting in two.
Yeah,
Like that seemed to be like a
that was
thing.
part of, right. I was thinking about that moment. We were talking just a few minutes ago. The moment when the in the ritual, when the tall ghostly figure turns around and it's her, you realize she's been split into two, but now she's exercising herself, right? It's somehow she was possessed by herself. And so that idea that she's split into two, and also that giving birth is a way of you are sort of splitting into two, right? You've been one, depending on your views on pro-life and pro-choice, who you're one person or two people, and then you become two people.
I mean, I was thinking about like so when I think about like bones and pregnancy and stuff, it makes me. I might be wrong about this, but so my last child was born 5 years ago, so it's been a minute since, like my wife and I have like been through that process. But I thought isn't there some actual separating of
maybe.
bones that does take place, like pelvic hip stuff that actually kind of.
Yes, that's true. Actually, right? The muscles get softer, and so you do actually. Yeah, that's true.
Like, isn't that a thing?
Your bones move further apart.
God, that is horrifying.
It is kind of horrifying. I mean, pregnancy is kind of horrifying. So this is what I take away from my own experience, and love seeing horror versions of it as a result.
Right.
I mean, I do think that like it is interesting that pregnancy usually would be the horror, but that's not the focus we get.
Yeah.
And I actually, so I have a question for you that could be tied in with this.
Okay, sure.
I was looking up to see basically like what Huesera the folk tale
Oh, okay.
is.
I wanted to bring this up.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
I'm
ahead,
going to
please.
just
This
paraphrase.
is why we both have our phones out.
Yes.
Because we're both like, oh, that was a myth.
Right. So just to paraphrase, but it's a Mexican folklore.
Right.
And basically, Huesera will search for the skeletons of forgotten creatures, specifically wolves, and basically will collect their bones. And then I guess she sings them back to life. And so once alive, like once the creature, the wolf usually, is alive and free, it'll be transformed into a woman. I think that's the folktale like that I got, but did you get something
No,
different?
I that's what I saw as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically a woman who collects bones sings them into a wolf. The wolf turns into a woman. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how this fit into the movie, and I could vaguely see it with the ending about like confidence and becoming like her own person. But I was also curious, like, how does this fit into like the pregnancy? And I was curious, like, maybe what you guys thought.
Yeah, I mean, so I should clarify this by saying that, like, or not clarify, preface this by saying that this is, 100%. Like my English major brain, like turning on the bullshit mode here, where I'm just like, I haven't researched this enough. I'm just, and I feel like a dummy for not looking this up in more thorough.
Just to quickly let everyone know, this is the first episode where Harry has had no notes, zero notes, none.
Shame.
I feel weird about that too. I'm also an English teacher, and I looked it up enough to see, it's a Mexican folktale, but then I didn't read the details.
I didn't look at I looked at the same Yahoo summary that you just looked at.
Well, I did look at another one. I looked at it. I did. I looked, and I will tell you what. It's basically the same fucking thing. It said there is one thing different in this one, written by, I'm going to butcher this name, Claudia Ruiz Gustafson.
Okay.
I don't know who that is, but that's what this website tells me.
Yep.
Okay, so she says the creature, that Huesera has made runs away eventually, transforming into a woman who runs free towards the horizon. So if she's running off with her backpack to be with Octavia to climb mountains, she's literally running off into the horizon.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
So I love that.
So that's the only additional difference.
Well, yeah, then I think, my interpretation is just that she has been these disparate bones in the sort of patriarchal, role that she has been trying to play, and via her adventure is then becomes the wolf and the woman, and sets off into the sunset. I don't know.
Well, now I'm going to sound like I'm totally obsessed with pregnancy, which I'm not. But
it's a huge part of the movie. But yeah.
And it's a very vivid. I did it twice. It's a very vivid experience.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's transformative, right? It's body horror in that sense.
Totally.
Like your body is literally transformed, and then you come out of it as two different creatures. And so it does make sense that this is a kind of way to think pregnancy, that Huesera, the the folktale sort of. But then usually the mother isn't free. Usually the mother is attached to the child. So
Right.
yeah, it's cool to think of telling a story of childbirth which involves the childbirth actually freeing the woman to leave.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's true, because the pregnancy also helped her recognize maybe what she wanted in life.
Yeah. So it's transformative both in the and when she's covering up her work room in favor of the baby's room, she's also losing something very important, and we're watching her then tear it apart, and then she sets the crib on fire. It's such a beautiful crib. I really love that crib. But anyway,
it is a beautiful crib. I was like, okay, she's a really good artist.
She is.
Yeah.
And it's and I think that you are supposed to feel that, and to feel the shame of her giving it all up to just mother a child.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite little details of this movie is as she's going through her closet in her workshop, she uncovers this piece of artwork, and I think we're supposed to assume that she created it. But what it is it's Jesus on the cross, but it's been turned into the female reproductive system. It's turned into ovaries and a uterus.
Oh, I completely forgot
and all
about
that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. I forgot about that image.
Me too.
No, that's one of my favorite.
It comes up twice too, because I remember seeing it once and then seeing it again and trying to hold on to it, but I lost it until you reminded me.
You're welcome.
This is what podcasts are for.
Yes.
Podcasting, you say. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, and the whole first scene where she's going to pray for the pregnancy is the Virgin Mary. And so an enormously huge statue, right? Many times larger than life size.
I did not get that was the Virgin Mary. That was the Virgin Mary?
I actually wasn't sure
either.
either.
Maybe I'm projecting.
I think the way I don't know, but I thought the way the mother talked about it later, I think she says the Virgin gave you this
yes, maybe that's it. So is it that?
So it's probably the Virgin Mary, but I don't know.
I thought at the time, maybe I'm just misrepresenting it, but it could be a
I should have looked it up.
statue of the Huesera or something.
Maybe. Interesting.
I just made the assumption.
Dear listener, if you know what it is,
Please tell us
in the comments in Instagram.
I did think, I was like, what is that sculpture? And then nope, I didn't look it up. Or statue. I guess it's not really a sculpture.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have one more question to ask before we move into talking about critique and other stuff like that.
Okay.
Which is did y'all have any kind of readings on what this movie says about wealth and wealth disparity? Having it, not having it.
Yeah, I was really interested in that part of it because I felt like it's seen as a betrayal by Octavia, right? That she has moved it up in class status. And when they first meet, Octavia's outside and she's in this fancy car, right? There's a distance between them.
You can taste the strained relationship.
Straight, and it's partly just money that divides them. And so why is that a betrayal? I could see everything else as a betrayal, right? That she leaves her. But it's something about the safety that money seems to represent or something. She's picked the easy route because she's picked the rich guy. And so she's completely cocooned in some way. So I thought that was really... It stuck out to me as being more important in their relationship than the other ways in which they had broken up. It seemed like the thing that the movie was insisting on. That she's a class traitor.
Because she's, I think Octavia, how do you say her name? Octavia. I'm not sure. Says you can go home to your nice house or whatever too. But I do think also it's a betrayal because it's not punk.
It's not punk,
and
right?
Octavia and all of her friends are still punk rockers.
Yes.
And
Well, sort of.
I
I mean,
mean-
Octavia's now like working at a gym. Like, so she
fair
got
enough.
a job.
That's true. She has
and
a job.
She
And
is
it's not punk to have a job.
she's grown up a little bit. I feel like she's not just like spray
No,
painting houses
that's
anymore.
true.
You know, like
But to conform
yes,
is
yes.
not punk. And
Right.
so Valeria has completely conformed.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like a combination of wealth and also just
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah.
And what that buys you is complete conformity, right? There's not
Right.
even struggle now. There's
Right.
not
Yeah.
even, there's no way to be an outsider
Nope.
if
And-
you're that.
Being in a hetero relationship,
Yeah.
you have that privilege now.
Right, sure.
So
I think there's also a tie in this movie between like the worlds of like science and spiritualism. And I think that those things are coded as like, you know, wealth privilege, like as features of wealth privilege or not, right? Like so Valeria's attempts to deal with whatever it is she's experiencing through her husband is very scientific, right? They
The
go
doctor.
to a doctor, they
Yes.
give her antidepressants.
Yeah.
you're right. yeah.
But when she tries to go with, is it her aunt?
Yes.
Who is
Yeah.
like who like,
Like the-
is like spiritualist and like mystical, right?
Yep.
And so I wonder what the movie kind of says about the relationships there, and does it place any more validity on one side or the other?
I was completely distracted by the statues that the doctor had on his desk. Did you see
I
those?
watched this movie 3 times. I didn't even notice.
I was like, what is
Are you
happening?
What is happening?
Why?
Wait.
Can you describe these
Yeah,
statues?
yeah,
Go
So
ahead.
they're
They
like they're as far as I remember, they're only
So
about
true.
a foot tall, but there are
Yeah.
about 5 of them.
There's so many of them.
There's
Yeah.
so many of them,
It's like,
6
what
of them,
doctor
and
is
they're
like-
all like marble statues of women,
Right.
sort of Greek sculpture
Yes,
style.
yeah,
like some
yeah.
of them look like, you know, the winged victory or whatever, but without the wings. But they're like women's bodies just all over his desk, and it doesn't feel like science. I guess
It's
is
so
my
funny.
response.
It's
yeah.
so funny. It's like he has to prove that he's a gynecologist.
Right.
Right? It's just like,
That's what he's.
right.
That's okay. Now I need to watch this movie again just
Yeah.
for that.
Just for
Fourth
the
time,
just for the
to
doctor's
see
desk.
this guy's wild.
And it felt like an odd doctor's office too, right? So we have, am I remembering it right that we're seeing Valeria and Raul entirely from the back and we're just looking at the doctor?
At the desk, I think.
the desk.
I'm having a hard time remembering, but maybe.
But I think we don't see their
Yeah.
faces. We just see him.
We do for a moment,
We do for a moment.
but it's mostly shot with their backs. Even when her mother-in-law is there
oh,
too.
right. There's that. That's the antidepressant one, right? So science already feels
Not
dark or
Yeah.
like
And it's
creepy
very-
or
It feels, yeah. Like I mean, I'm not trying to like muddy these waters with too many like intersections of stuff, but like it feels very white to me as well, right? Like just these like Greek statues
Yes.
and this very classical Western look to this office.
right.
You know
So
what
the
I mean?
science, it's kind of heightening the
Right.
associations with science
Right,
and
with,
Western
like,
culture, rationalism.
Yeah,
and-
exactly,
right.
exactly, yeah.
Right. Whereas the spiritualist
That's like, yeah.
world is
It feels very
definitely-
alien
yeah,
and
yeah.
wild, but also very casual and natural.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
and it feels like
yes.
this is like homier.
Homey.
Like you know,
Homier,
like,
yeah.
like cozier than
Right.
like the doctor's office that feels cold.
Right.
Like there feels like there's
That's a great
warmth
point.
in the
We're
other one.
introduced to the aunt, and she is, you know, sucking on some kind of drink, you know, like in the streets. You remember this? Like this
Yeah.
is where we
Yep.
meet her, and
Yep.
she's like just hanging out with people and drinking in the street, and yeah, and then after the ceremony too, they're all just kind of like reclined in these chairs.
Yes, yeah.
Right, and hanging out together.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a really interesting movie as far as just a lot of different little intersections you could look at, you know, I think.
Yeah. And the one piece that we haven't talked about, and I wonder if we should do that even before we move on, is just the spider people. Because I feel like
Sure.
what is there to say about the spider people? I mean, they're super creepy.
They
it's
are.
a very brilliantly creepy invention.
I said this on our last episode that scaring. So we've been doing this for almost a year now.
Wow! Almost anniversary.
And scaring me doesn't really come cheap. I've been watching horror movies for a long time. I've kind of seen it all. Seen it all. And yeah, like the first time we saw that spider person who jumps out off the balcony, but then looks up at her, I went ah!
Yes, it's
I'm like
so
chilling in my
unsettling.
classroom watching it by myself on a huge screen, and I'm like, ah!
Because it's unexpected too. Like you're watching the movie and you're like, you don't expect that to happen. Like it's very unnerving. It has kind of like it's shot in kind of like a Hitchcock way too. I feel
What do you mean by that?
Rear Window.
Yes. Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
Watching from across.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like the voyeurism of it.
The voyeurism of it,
Yeah.
right? And there's a way in which they're both seeing each other and not seeing each other.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
And they're less scary in the final ritual.
You think they're less scary?
Do you think they're...
What?
I mean, I think
I found them very scary.
maybe it's because...
consume her.
Maybe you've been exposed to them a bunch at that point, and I don't know.
I guess I just felt like she was... The point was to get her to the other side, and so they're also participating. Yes, you can actually see them. You can see what they're doing. I don't know. I didn't find it nearly as scary, because it seemed like it was part of this ritual. Well, the first time is just so shocking.
Yeah.
And the first time's in the dark, kind of in the shadows.
Yes.
The second time's more in the light, where it felt like where it's a lot of them in the woods. It almost felt more like visually interesting and artsy to look at.
More
It did feel-
artsy. Yes.
And yeah, you're right. The point was like she has to go through this transformation or whatever to like get out through the other side. So it's like it's necessary. They are necessary for her.
But you guys found them super creepy then too.
I found
you
them
horror
very scary.
veterans.
Yeah, I found them very scary.
I found them creepy, but they didn't scare me.
No. They, what they tickle is my... So Jen and I were both imprinted by The Ring.
Oh yeah.
From like 2002. 2003?
1 or 2. It's like early 2000s. No, it has to be before 2003.
Dear listener, if you know what... It's an easily verifiable fact. Anyway.
We all have smartphones, but I like that we're not using them.
Right, no, we're going to rely on
Go
internet
old
comments
school.
for this one. There's something just that it has been imprinted on me about people crawling in unnatural ways, and that will always just freak me out.
Yeah.
And
The Ring is a good example
the
of
Ring is
that.
a good, and the Ring is where it comes from. Watching her crawl up out of that well was like a big moment for me as a young horror enthusiast. So
Then there is something really, what Freud called the uncanny, right? It's like you see a body doing human things, but then you see it shifting in these ways that's not supposed to move, and that's really...
So do you feel like you have an interpretational take on the spider people, or is it just kind of more about the aesthetic experience?
I mean, I would like to hear, to brainstorm a little. Like,
Yeah,
I don't even know why they're spider people, what is so important about spiders? And it's not in the folktale.
No, it's not in the folktale, but in the description online, it calls them witches. But I feel like that's wrong.
That's interesting.
I
They
feel
call them
like
witches?
Some description. I don't know if it was Wikipedia or like, Shutter's description or like something, Google's. But I feel like that's wrong. So I don't know what will we call them, because I don't know her name. The one that took her.
The aunt.
The first time. Aunt.
Oh, but the one that who says this is a big deal if you go through with it.
The first time she goes, it's with that one woman who basically asks her, "Did you want it?" She nods her head yes, even though that's clearly a lie. And then she shows her like the jar of what's in her, and it's the web, like the spider. She has a spider inside her.
Oh yes.
So
right.
I think that's maybe where they come from. So like it's like the physical human form of the spider.
In horror that is about, in any way kind of like curse related or anything like that, you're always kind of presented with a physical manifestation of the thing that is dogging you. And I think about, about pregnancy. And it makes sense to me that she is being sort of, quote unquote, haunted by these sort of broken bone spider creatures. And I think about a web too. And I think about spiders almost like there's something uniquely scary about spiders and inhuman about spiders.
Yes.
And,
Yes, that's true.
She's being kind of presented with the dehumanization that she is facing, again, from like the patriarchy's role for her as a mother.
She's
in a way.
just a
She's
reproductive
gonna be
vessel.
She's going to be a
Yes.
spider in a web.
Right.
And her job is going to be to make eggs and catch flies and feed them.
But she'll
and-
be stuck the whole time.
But she'll be stuck
Right,
there.
and
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
maybe really a productive thought about the spider is that they make their own web, but then they're stuck in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
That does
Right.
sound like Valeria's life.
It does. You're right. You're absolutely right. Like these are a lot of choices that she is making, and she's finding that she's not happy with it throughout.
And she's trapped.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, thank
love
you.
that
We did that.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
All right. That seems like a good time
Are
to
we rating?
move on
It's
to
time.
critique.
Let's critique.
All right, let's do it. So I've seemed to be on a streak of doing this, but I loved this
give it a
movie.
9?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
God damn it.
I'm sorry. I loved every time I watched it. I was like, I love this movie.
Yeah.
It has so many elements of things I love. I watched it with Tegan, and Tegan was like, "No wonder you love this movie." It's like so much focus on women, strong women, punk, like goth.
Yeah. This is a movie crafted for you, really. I mean,
And it does have an aesthetic of a lot of beauty to it.
Yes, like even the horror moments
Yes.
are pretty. And it's a woman director, and I believe she wrote it as well, but we might have to look that up and confirm that. But which I love. I think Mexican-Peruvian.
yeah.
Oh,
I think it's her first film, maybe.
I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
That's impressive if that's
It
the
is.
case.
For
a first
I
film.
Or maybe
yeah.
first full length. I don't know. A lot. Maybe she did shorts before. I should also. I'm just making this up. I should really look this up. Either way, it had body horror, which I love that. It wasn't truly possession because that annoys me. But yeah, I like that. Like every time I can kind of pull different things from it, and so that's why it is a 9 for me.
9.
Who wants to go next?
Strong.
I haven't ever
wait,
rated
we should-
any
we
Oh, we should have
movies.
explained this to you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's okay. I
just-
need some guidance.
I
Yes.
jumped right in.
So Jen was champing at the bit. We rate from 1 to 10. A 1 is like the worst thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
A 10 is like this is a classic film that should be remembered through the ages.
Yeah.
I see.
But Harry and I rate it
Yeah.
based on
It's based on what you're interested in.
Yeah.
So like
Right.
Your own taste.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
Jen's
Okay.
very like aesthetically minded, I would say.
Yeah.
Endings are very important to you.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Your rewatchability is very important,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh.
I'd
Yeah.
say.
Those are
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now you do me. Now you do me.
Don't put me on the spot. Shit, I need to think about that. But yeah, that's accurate. Damn.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I can do that for you.
That's okay.
No.
You want me to say it? I'm very like theme oriented. I'm very like,
yes.
can you pull
Yes.
a coherent, productive interpretation out of this movie? So I'll go next. I will give it an 8 though. So for me, 9 and 10 is reserved for movies that are not only like excellent, but I feel play a significant role in some sort of societal discourse. So like for me, we were talking before the recording about like Get Out.
Yeah.
And like I would say Get Out's a 9 or a 10 because it's got that. You know what I mean? It was not only amazingly done, but I think really changed people's discussions about race. You know what I mean? But this movie falls just short of that. I mean, there's really nothing. I have no real complaints about this movie other than that it just didn't have that sort of magical, you know, moment in time thing, you know. I suppose if I was absolutely nitpicking, I would want there to be something I would want it to be a little clearer that her happiness about becoming pregnant is complicated. But I'm almost not even sure I want that, right? Because like I almost like the complexity of her. Yes, she wants this, but she also simultaneously doesn't, you know, like so.
Right, and it seems like to me part of the interest of the movie was that it starts out looking like one story and ends up being another. So it starts out looking like, oh, here's this happily married woman who wants a baby, right? But we gradually learn that she doesn't want it. But it just takes a long time for that to...
Yeah.
So I kind of like that it's gradual.
Yeah.
Slow burn. I think there's something about Valeria's psychology that's not quite persuasive to me. And I want a little bit more of that.
Tell me, so what is that?
So, like, it's the internal struggle. She goes kind of blank sometimes, right? And I think that's part of what the movie's trying to do, right? Like even in that first scene when she's up with the statue and they're praying, she's just blank. And I guess I wanted more richness to that. Or there's something about her, it still doesn't quite make sense. I feel like it could have made even more sense to me.
Like more direction in her emotions in those moments?
Yeah, or maybe just to understand the blankness better. Like, we didn't get quite enough access to her, I think. I mean, I get that also the spider people are sort of externalizations of the things she can't think. So I'm seeing how that works, but maybe there was something almost oversimplified. I mean, I guess maybe it's the same thing you're saying, Harry. Like, I want a little more complexity even around the pregnancy. Like, it's a little too much yes to, it's like a gradation that goes from yes to no.
Yeah.
But then after the baby is born, she also feels bad for almost murdering it. Like, you know, like what? There's something else I want in it that gives shape to her, her relation to the pregnancy. I guess. So I'm gonna give it a 7.
Yeah.
That's a good score.
I did like it. I did
still pretty
really
solid.
admire
Yeah, it
it.
is.
Yeah,
It is
and
solid.
I really like the aesthetic of it. I really thought, and I thought I would not say I'm hard to scare. I think I'm quite easy to scare. But boy, was that first spider person scene
Very scary.
terrifying and brilliant. Yeah, that was like sneak into your body and like shake you, kind of
It's like unnerving.
Yeah.
And it's
Where
at
are my
enough
nerves?
distance where you can't see like things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Almost as nightmarish as her babysitting gig for those 2 kids.
Yeah.
Which is like, those are the worst behaved kids in the entire
Those
world.
children
I like
Yes.
terrible.
Oh my God.
I was like, they should be in trouble.
You need to tell their parents. And then I was like, am I running into like a cultural thing though? Like, I don't know.
When
like,
the little boy makes fun of the other kid and does like the like.
yeah, he's being a total asshole. You're right.
they're
I'm
jerks.
thinking that. You're right.
He's a bully, and the little girl's laughing, and like
they're being just
mean
terrible to
children.
her. They're being terrible to her.
Yeah, after that, I wouldn't want kids. I mean, I don't want
Hell
children,
no.
but you know.
Yeah,
That's
maybe
like, no.
that's the kind of psychological depth I wanted a little bit more of, because children are not just awful, right? They're
Okay, sure,
mixed,
sure.
you know? They
Sure.
can be
They can
truly
be.
awful, but they there's some version of them that's also
Just
needy
yeah.
or
well, they're an expression of their needs.
yeah, right.
I do agree, but I do think that, like, as a person who has complicated feelings about whether or not I wanted children,
Right.
and then decided I didn't want children, if I got pregnant, holy shit, I
Right.
would be like horrified.
Right.
And like her reactions, I think, like throughout the whole thing, I read her as, it's like this, like you're frozen inside.
Right,
It's this
right.
like fear of like, what have I done? But I'm supposed to want this.
Right.
So I think that's part of it, is like she has not come to the realization yet that she doesn't want children. So it's still that fight within her
I
that
see.
like
I
society
see.
tells me
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have this. My sister has it. People are supposed to like have children, and
Yeah.
that's what you do.
Well, and I think what you're saying there, which I love, we've slipped back into analysis. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh yes, right.
This movie just lends itself
Is
to
it supports itself with a lot of her, that actress. What's that actress's name? Hang on, let's shout her out.
All right.
Natalia Solian does a really like interesting scared face.
Yes.
Where it's like silent. Like she doesn't like scream,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
she
yeah.
contorts contorts herself
Yeah,
into
yeah.
this scream face.
Look, yeah.
Which is I think a lot about like freezing up and you know, in the face of something that you're not ready for. So I think that's really cool, and that makes me like it a lot.
Going back to critique, I thought the spider people were done really well. And that can be something that horror movies can do terribly
Sure.
in a really cheesy way.
Just like the scare factor.
Yes,
Right.
where
Yeah.
it's like, I liked that the film, like the camera work was still steady and the same
yeah.
and slow, as opposed to like trying to speed things up or whatever. Like it wasn't like they didn't do like
Frantic
or like
yeah.
sometimes they do like this effect in horror that's almost like they speed up the film, so it's like it's moving quicker.
Yeah.
So like they didn't do anything weird with like it was.
Yeah,
don't
no, I
know.
got the sense that it was a bunch of like kind of talented, like almost dancers actually, who were like doing that stuff.
I'm not
yeah.
sure, but like what would you say, like a contortionist?
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Right, right.
Just express with their bodies very interestingly.
And some people can, in fact, do things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I hadn't thought about that.
I feel like that kind of like went. I don't know. I would see how you guys feel. Like I feel like that whole moment of her with them, and then like, you know, rising up and like burning, and like that the whole sequence is
Yeah.
like silent basically, and never explained. And it turns kind of gets surreal at
It
times.
gets very visual.
Yeah, I loved that. But how did you guys like feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love that too. Absolutely.
I figured, yeah. Caroline, what did you think of that?
I like that language kind of fails in the final act of this. You know, not that it fails, but it just doesn't become the main medium that the story is being expressed.
Like it kind of falls
through,
away.
Really, you know, yeah.
Yeah, even the last scene with her and Raul and the baby.
Yeah.
Are there no words?
I don't think
there's
there
any
are.
words.
don't
I think she's
there
just
are.
kind of crying and then leaves.
Wow, that's interesting. I hadn't even noticed that. I feel like I was stuck in a thought that now I realize was irrelevant, which is they say something, the witches, I kind of think they might be witches. But
think
anyway,
so?
they have that kind of look of like the like Shakespearean witches of Macbeth
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah,
They have
sure,
this
sure,
sort
sure.
of like
See that?
little coven of I also like witches, so it
I
doesn't
like witches
seem like
too.
a downgrading of anything.
No.
But they say something about the baby in the blanket. And so when the blanket, I kept worrying about the blanket, like where was the baby going to be? And the baby is not there through that whole
no.
sequence. And I think I would have watched it more calmly had I known that
I think
there
they
was
say,
no baby.
I forget how they word it, but like something like the blanket will represent the baby.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe you're right. And it's not quite, yeah.
But I forget how they word it, because the blanket
Yeah.
also seems teeny around the baby.
Yes, and then grows.
Is much larger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was just worried from the time the baby is born that the baby was going to die. And so I was watching for that. And so I wasn't quite paying attention to the beauty of
Were you
the
like
transformation.
relieved at the end when the baby was still
Oh,
alive?
yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I think that's like. Do you feel like it's an on purpose thing? Like, do you think that, like, you know, it's almost like if there's a gun in the mantle in Act One, right? Like, if you put a baby in a horror movie, like we have this expectation that I don't know.
No, that's true. If you put a baby in a horror movie,
Yeah.
you expect bad things to happen to that baby.
Right.
Well,
right.
and I somehow thought that her ritual process was going to purify her, but not the baby. Like at the cost of the baby. I think that was my expectation. And so the fact that it has a happy ending is
Yeah.
startling.
And I think that that's exactly part of the point of the movie is that, you know, it's this idea that she doesn't have to choose, that you don't have to sacrifice the baby to have a life, or you
Right.
don't, you know.
Right. She can
something
be
like
free
that.
and somebody else can do
And
the great
that's-
job of looking after that kid.
Absolutely.
Yep. He seems like he'll very much love that kid.
He will
Yeah.
love that
Yep.
baby.
Yes,
Yes,
he will.
Yes,
Yep.
Yes, he will.
yes.
Should we talk about the hottest?
Yeah, of
We're gonna
course
talk
we
about the
should.
hottest?
We should
So
talk
this
about
is
the
something
hottest.
we talk about who's the hottest in the movie. This is like a game that we play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
tough.
I wish I had had the
The heads up.
prompt because I would have looked more carefully.
So I do have the
Yeah.
cast up if anybody
Okay.
wants to look at my phone, and their names.
I have an answer.
Yeah, I have an answer too.
Okay. Let's say it at the same time. Ready?
All right, one, two, three.
Octavia.
Oh my god, that was my second choice.
That's good. Okay, you go first. Why Valeria?
I have a thing for people with really round features. So like she has very like her like eyes and her face shape and her like mouth, everything is like kind of rounded.
Yes.
And so like I just like find that very hot. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I know
So
that's
just
weird.
a purely shape related.
I don't know. It just seems to be the thing that I've noticed over
Yeah.
my lifetime.
Look, yeah, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying it's interesting. As a visual artist, you're like,
As a visual artist, I like round things. I mean, also that would include boobs, but she doesn't show off her boobs a lot, except in the bathtub.
sure.
So yeah, that's my pick.
I'm gonna say Octavia. I think that it's great. She's just so true to herself. She's so confident in what she does. I think that it is. I think it's interesting that she sleeps with Valeria, despite knowing that Valeria is like in a marriage and pregnant, and I think that's like very interesting and complicated and
hot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Caroline?
I did not find anyone hot. I'm really thinking about this, guys. You know, one of the things that weirded me out was a couple of the kisses, not the remembered kisses, but the contemporary kisses between Valeria and Octavia were not erotic.
Interesting.
There was something about smashing. They were like
Yeah,
smashing
very,
their
like, it was
faces.
very- yeah.
And it put me off. Like, I think it would have been much hotter if it had been a more erotic kiss.
Do you think that the kiss should, like, you think it was smashy because, like, there was so much more behind it than actually, like, attraction to each other there? Like, Valeria is
Right.
so desperate to escape
Yeah,
what she's experiencing.
And, yeah, and it feels like Octavia's not even really reciprocating the kiss at least once. And so the hotness quotient came down because it didn't feel like, I mean, actually it's like the sex with Raoul in the first part of it, like it doesn't seem erotic at all.
No, yeah. It's
The
business.
spider people are a little erotic in a really creepy
You
way.
can pick the spider people.
You can pick spider people.
I'm serious.
I am not interested
It's stop
in
mo-
actually sleeping with a spider person.
No,
I just
but-
want to make that clear.
In the,
That's fine.
in the stop motion episode, there
flexible.
is literally stop motion creatures, and our guest picked one of them. So you can pick anything.
Well, I don't think that they were hot.
You
But
could
I
pick the
think there was
doctor.
something. Yeah,
How about the doctor's statues?
Yes, the
What do you think? I mean, yeah.
the statues. There we go. I was unmoved on the hotness front.
Oh, wow. That's a first.
That is the first.
Yeah, that's a first.
It's the first time it's ever happened.
But you know what? I
appreciate the honesty, though.
I do,
Because
and
opposed to just picking someone.
And I admire the bravery. Yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah, this is what I try to do. I try to be free, like a wolf transformed.
Into
Into a woman running to the horizon.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
right.
my god.
So I have a new idea for a
Oh
game.
shit. What is it?
Oh shit.
We're scared, Harry. Scared.
No, I just want. So I want to play a game that I'm calling Fatal Frame. It's not actually. That's a video game. Anyway, but basically, if y'all could pick your favorite frame of the movie, single shot, and then talk to us about why it speaks to you personally.
The crib itself struck me as so aesthetically beautiful, and there's a moment when you can see her through the spider webby end of the crib. That's very vivid to me as like it brings lots of things together in that moment. So I might pick that one.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. I feel like it's actually a very tastefully shot movie and like artfully shot, but not in a way that like smacks you as like artful shooting.
I think that's
like,
exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
like Immaculate. That was a movie where it was just like, look at these beautiful shots, right? It's
like, look at the land we have, and now they're running on it.
Yeah, but this is a movie that like gives us beautiful shots, but doesn't. It doesn't. There's no pretense about it, which I like a lot. Jen, any thoughts?
Okay, so I don't know if this is what I would pick if I was watching the movie looking for a still to pick out, but watching it tonight, I was focused on, so when she's like in the bed, I think it's maybe kind of around the time with the baby monitor thing that happens. Yeah. The screen kind of like splits in two.
Yeah.
That's weird, right?
It is, but on the third watch, I was like, oh, we've heard a few times about the body splitting in two, especially like with pregnancy. And I was like, and also in a way with even like the witch ritual that happens, she splits in two. So I feel like I was like, oh, this is interesting, like this is purposeful. I was like, this is a experimental kind of like shot to put in this film, but it actually has meaning.
Thematic,
so I feel like that
No, it's cool.
stuff.
You're right. I love that because I would also normally be really annoyed at a movie that waits that long to employ that kind of like an editing choice. But I agree that it's like it's thematically appropriate, and so it just works. And you know, I watched it, I never even questioned it. I never even like looked at it. I was like, that's it seemed very natural for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, that's like 3/4 of the way through the movie. It's like almost over.
And it's the only time it happens.
It's the only time it happens.
It's the only time it happens. Yeah.
Very strange. For me, it's going to be that shot. It's one of the first shots we get, but it also happens at the end where she's walking off into wherever they're performing this ritual, and she's got the blanket and it's on fire. And like, I just love that so much. I think there's so much symbolism in the fire as a destructive force, but also conjuring up ideas of like, you know, like the phoenix and rebirth and you know, new life there too in a strange way. Like the destruction has to happen so it can come about. But
And it's shot beautifully. Like that fire looks great.
It's
I do
beautiful,
not know if it's CGI fire. Could you tell?
I couldn't tell.
Sometimes, and that's awesome, because
looked
even
real
if
to
it
me,
is, it doesn't matter then.
Yeah.
Because it looked so real.
Yeah, I would 100% buy that it was a practical effect.
Yeah, same.
It was just cool. Awesome. Cool. Well, does anybody have any thoughts on this movie that we need to express before we call it a day? A night?
No,
I'm really
but-
grateful to have been assigned it because I wouldn't have watched it otherwise. But
Oh,
I
well,
really
I will
enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And I did specifically pick this movie because I know you like movies about motherhood.
Yes, I
and
really
I was like,
do.
ooh, maybe a horror movie about motherhood.
There you go. Perfect.
Oh yes, oh yes. I have so many complicated feelings about motherhood. But I need all the genres to be
To process them
participating.
fully, yes.
Yeah. Horror's definitely in there.
Awesome. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. This has been lovely.
Oh, wait, we need a sound bite.
Oh, right, Caroline, give
Yes.
us. Okay, so here's what we close out. We close out
Okay.
with a sound bite.
Okay.
Just say a thing or make a noise of any kind to be the last thing that people hear on this
And
podcast.
it could literally be anything.
Sure. Someone went.
Someone went, bye-bye.
Someone just went.
Well, I don't know how to crack my
Knuckles.
knuckles. Do either of you?
No, I don't.
I mean, I do.
Could you do that
I can
into
do
the...
it for you.
For
I'll
me,
do it.
yes.
I'll do it for you.
Yes.
Here we go. There it is. Wait, I got a little more. Oh wait. Oh no, I don't have any more. Oh no!